Let's turn to this attempt to get a free trade deal between the US and the EU. Now, such matters are handled on our behalf by Brussels, which deals directly with Washington. The Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, or TTIP, is an attempt to get a free trade agreement between the European Union and the United States. Negotiations between Brussels and Washington started last year. They aim to remove trade barriers to make it easier to buy and sell goods and services between the EU and the United States. The UK government says this will boost growth and job creation in the UK and the rest of the European Union. Speculative estimates suggest transatlantic free trade could add £162 billion to the EU's GDP and £85 billion to the US GDP. But critics claim it would allow US health firms to compete more freely in the UK and lead to privatisation of the NHS through the back door. As a result, some trade unions and NGOs have called for healthcare to be taken out of the agreement. But the EU's Trade Commissioner says public services are exempt from the deal and has dismissed claims of NHS privatisation as scaremongering. One of the chief critics of the trade deal is the Green MEP, Jean Lambert.
Well, for Greens, there are a number of issues about TTIP, but the main one is that this is really about a corporate agenda, and it gives power to the corporations through the regulatory authority, potentially to the courts, to undermine, overthrow the decisions made by democratically elected governments and indeed citizens who have worked to get legislation in place on environment, on energy, on pharmaceuticals, financial regulation, a whole set of things which are at risk through the corporate agenda and a weakening through the regulatory authority.
Bill Etheridge, is UKIP in favour of a free trade deal between Europe and the United States?
We're in favour of free trade. But this particular deal, in the context that it's currently in and the way we see it coming through, hold massive threats to our public health services we see it. And it's something that, due to the PFI deals that have gone on, the backdoor privatisation of the NHS through Labour and Conservative governments, creates a serious issue. So as it sits right now, we are not in favour of this deal.
Why does it threaten our public services?
Because it allows American corporations to sue, to get their lawyers, high-powered lawyers, involved to try and fight for getting into the PFI side of things. There's too much danger. If there's even the slightest hint that they may be able to force their way in suing our public health service, etc., then we can't allow that.
Do you agree with that?
Well, I'm pleased to hear that you see privatisation of the NHS as such a threat. I'm confused as to why your deputy leader has openly called for it on his website.
But he hasn't.
No, but he has.
That's
you can't deny it. You see,
well, he took his website down, I think, after it was
whether you take it down
revealed.
or not, he still said it, and it's still in the cache.
It's also in the Google cache, which they always forget.
Exactly, and in 10 seconds of Googling will reveal not only the page on the website, but the further discussion that's happened in newspapers about it. I think that's far more worrying for a party that's polling as it is.
All right, but I understand that. But this point that this free trade deal, is it or isn't it a threat to the NHS?
If the NHS were an explicit part of the deal, and the idea of secret courts that could hold governments to ransom, in effect, were part of the deal, then absolutely. But neither of those things are in the deal. We've heard, for instance, from Juncker during his speech to the Parliament that there would be no secret courts. And, of course, Labour is calling very strongly for the exemption of the NHS from TTIP. So, from our point of view, we're arguing for those exemptions. And that's, again, part and parcel of being part of the European Union and arguing for change from within.
But the EU Trade Commissioner, Karel de Gucht, who's been interviewed on this programme, he says public services are always exempted. There is no problem about exemption. The argument is abused in your country, by which he means our country, for political reasons, but it has no grounds.
Well, I recently went to a breakfast meeting where the US ambassador to the EU was speaking, and he didn't make it clear that they were exempt at all. And if there's the slightest hint of doubt, because unlike what we're being told constantly, UKIP does not believe in any form of privatisation of the NHS. We stand against it as a policy. So we will fight this.
But there are, at the moment, 400,000 operations in the NHS that are done by the private sector. They're free at the point of use. The NHS pays for them, but they're a way of trying to get the queues down. Are you against that?
Yes, I was a hospital governor for 3 years. I've seen the fact taxpayers are mugged by these PFI schemes. It's a disgrace. If we didn't have these schemes that were put in backdoor privatisation by Labour and Conservatives...
So every operation has to be done by the NHS?
What we'd like to see it's not, you can't do things overnight, and no one's suggesting it, but as an aspiration, we would prefer to see the NHS properly above board funded.
This issue of TTIP, as it's called, this free trade agreement, and the potential implications for the NHS, although the Commissioner is quite clear on this, when we were researching this for the programme this morning, it was quite difficult to get a definitive view on it. It does seem there are unclear or potential unclear implications for the NHS.
Yep. Well, I think that's why we as MEPs need to be absolutely vigilant to ensure that every single step, every single stage of the process is under scrutiny, and that's obviously what we're elected to do. We should remember that actually trade deals are negotiated all the time by national parliaments, by supranational institutions like the EU, and there is hardly any scrutiny attached to it. So for the first time we're seeing a very big discussion with civil society, big discussions we're having now on something that's so crucial. And personally, I think that's a good step forward in the evolution.
But there are no EU countries can do national deals on trade now.
Sure. Well, on this scale, no, you can still do trade deals, absolutely, but you can't do it on
no, you can't do a free trade deal.
Sure, sure.
You can do a bilateral trade arrangement, but you can't do a free trade deal. If you got your way and we came out of Europe, I assume that you would want to do a free trade deal with the United States.
We're a free trade party. You know, we think it's scandalous that we haven't actually got a free trade deal right now. But the whole point of it is we do it standing strong for British interests and doing it ourselves rather than having to rely on Mr Junkers and his pals to do it for us.
We're going to have to leave that there.